Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Johnson Community College for a coaches show, the Jaguars coaches show. I'm Petey Doris today, and we got Coach Creecy of the men's varsity Jaguars basketball team. Coach Creecy, welcome aboard.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
Thank
Coach. What a start to a new season here in Johnson Community College for the Jaguars. Not starting off the way every coach wants to start, but, we picked up the big win Saturday against Guilford Tech, and, moving forward into 2023, the new year, the new chapter. First part of the year, you guys started off with a big victory against Shooting for Greatness at home. Got a little win under the belt. Then you started, going against teams in the region, teams out of the region. So, what's different this season compared to last season with the group of guys you have?
Well, one of the things as we look back from this point to where we've been over the course of the last month, we end up having to change around our schedule. So we had one game and then we jumped right into conference. And know much about the conference. I mean, our first conference game was at Davidson, who are the reigning conference champion, the tournament champion, and it represented our region in the Final Four last year. So we did not walk into this thing very, missing those games hurt us, and it reflected. We dealt with some injuries. Had an injury. We have 4 returning players from last year's squad, and 2 of those players, Casey Perkins and Kamon Green, were guys that played a lot of minutes last year. Both of them were starters and things of that nature. And the rest of the guys, the other probably top 7 players, have already moved on. We have a couple guys, Dorian Ruffin and Charles Walker, are at Dean College up in Massachusetts playing. Savon Holland was a return forward from last year. He's at UNC Pembroke. We have another young man, Waukese Allen, that was an all-region performer last year that left and went to North Carolina Wesleyan. And we had another young man that was with us last year, half the season, interior player Jermaine Barine, and he's now at South Carolina State. He's not able to play just yet, but I'm expecting him to get himself together and be able to contribute there. So we have a new group of guys, and learning curve has been a little bit steeper, just getting experience, a lot of talent, have some size. So we have what we want as far as the roster configuration. We just got to put it together and spend time, and you learn in games, you learn through live action, and we're learning, but we also have to try to be a whole unit. That's been one thing that's impacted us quite a bit. I mean, Kamon missed 2, maybe 3 games with the growing, and now he's finally getting himself back together. Another guy came in, Lee Darian. He hurt his wrist in the first game, and then he missed the Davidson game, and then he came back, and if you watch us playing, his wrist is wrapped up, so he really did hurt his wrist, and he's playing through it. But it still gives him something he's having to work through. Had a Zamir point guard. He missed the game due being sick. Eli missed the game being sick. So we just had quite a few different obstacles, and while we're trying to grow and develop chemistry, so that's hurt us. But hopefully after Saturday, we've pulled things together, and we kind of know who we are. So we can build upon that and work together, and hopefully we can, continue to have an upward arrow, so to speak.
Yeah, like you said, you returned some players, and, looking as the sophomore leadership, as mostly everybody knows in the JUCO area, it's only freshmen and sophomores. But who do you look for in the leadership? I mean, I noticed you got Mike Mason, you got Kamon Green, Casey Perkins, and you got Benjamin coming off of the bench as like a 6-7 man rotation. But who do you look for? Do you look for all the sophomores as like a leadership, or is there one person that you can be like, I can count on this man and this man to step up and lead the freshmen?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because that has been probably one of the things that has hindered us the most, because we don't have an identity. Casey would be what you would consider to be our leader. But Casey's not a vocal person. Casey doesn't lead. He'll lead by example, and he'll lightly be demanding, but that's not his personality. Mike is very similar to Casey. Kamon, on the other hand, is vocal, but Kamon's Kaman is the type of person where if there's something that's a challenge, he takes it on internally. So we don't have
Sophomore leadership.
a leader that we can say we're going to follow, and that's part of what we're growing as a team and figuring out who can be the player that leads. Because player-led teams are what you need. You need players to hold the team accountable in many facets, not just on the court, study hall, practice. They need to be they hold each other accountable. So we have to have that. And there's a couple people. Rod has tried to step up. Rod didn't play very much last year, but he's worked and he's become a very key figure because he has the ability to stretch the floor and help us create space because he can shoot the ball really well. He also is one of the more vocal players. So we have that, and we're growing in that era. But we don't have in the area, but we don't have a defined leader. So that's something that someone has to grab that and take ownership of that and be that person or someone's. Because you can't make leaders. Leaders have to assume that responsibility themselves. You can't just give that responsibility.
Yeah, you just can't. I mean, it's not like a team captain where you can be like, you
Mm-hmm.
is a team captain today.
Mm-hmm.
But the leadership they have to identify themselves.
Definitely.
Yeah, through some of the games, like you say, you start off Davis and Davy, and I tell you that's a road trip for anybody that goes up against Davis and Davy. I'm interested to see how the New Year's Day game goes. Them and Sandhills matching up, two well-known programs throughout the region, and but that game you guys lost by double digits.
Yeah, that game got out of hand, and it was that was a credit to Davidson. We weren't prepared to play Davidson at that time. That's the reality.
Should have been like a February game.
I mean, not to be the first game on the road of the season.
Yeah.
And obviously that wasn't the expectation, but we had some issues with our scheduling and obviously with that beyond our control that created that scenario. So we had to work through that. But even in this region, not just Davidson, they're on the top. So you got to beat the champ. But you don't have any nights off in this region.
No.
Every game should be competitive. It's expected to be competitive, and that's the beauty of this. That's why when I took this job, I guess maybe 4 years ago now. That was in the interview process. I said we need to align ourselves with the strongest level in the region because that will benefit us on the long run, and it'll help our student athletes prepare themselves for what their ultimate goal is, and they want to get to the next level. And since I've been here, we've accomplished that by placing guys at schools that are earning opportunities and that are producing at the next level. I think since I've been here, we have something like 11 alumni in the past 4, and that may be short, to be quite honest, that have moved on and are playing basketball at the next level. We have a young man that played here the first year I came here that's now an assistant coach. So, things have manifested themselves where Johnston has hopefully become someone that is valued and respected in this region. So, that's the goal. That's what we're pushing towards, and if that's not in place just yet, then we're still working towards doing that. I think last year was a big testament to that. We actually exceeded some expectations as our first year in the region as a Division II program, and we finished in the 5th seed out of, I think it's 11 or 13 teams in our region.
13 teams, yeah.
Right. So that was probably a shocker to most, but we worked for it, and now we have to build upon that. So that's the goal, to build upon that and to continue to, like I said, move that arrow upward as a program.
Yeah, looking back at Saturday's game, I've talked with you through the games, and it seems like I feel like the rotation is getting it's kind of settling in a little bit with the players. On Saturday, I saw that Eliza played. He had some good minutes coming off the bench. He got up a few shots, played some big boards down low for you as Lee was on the bench for getting some rest. But I've seen a lot of different basketball on Saturday compared to what I've seen during the year. And, the post-game interview on Saturday, you pretty much said you just had to, make adjustments at halftime to stop turning the ball over and actually finishing a game instead of being on the opposite side where they're holding the ball. Now you're holding the ball, burning the shot clock. And, through Saturday's game was one of the games that you guys had the least amount of turnovers. Mm-hmm. You guys shot a whole lot less shots than the opponent. In the second half, Saturday's game, Guilford Tech was 14 for 48.
Right. Right.
And that tells you right there they end up getting, I believe, 9 offensive boards putbacks, but the shots didn't fall.
Right. And that's kind of been something that we work on and we discuss and we talk about and we review film. We have to do a better job of limiting people per possession. I mean, I think if we look back, I remember looking back and looking at some numbers over the course of the first games, and I think teams are averaging like 12 to 15 more field goal attempts than us per game. And that's a testament to us just not finishing defensive possessions. And we talk about it, we work on it, but that is a internal challenge that I've issued to them, that you have to finish the possession by possessing the ball. We can't watch, and we talk about all the time watching the basketball in the air. The people in the stands pay $5 to do that. You got to work and you got to hit somebody and you got to find the ball. Our freshman point guard Zamir is growing up, and he's becoming a person that I can rely on to control tempo, and get us into things we want to do and execute offensively and spearhead our defense from the top. It helps that Kaman's getting healthy. I mean, most people in the region understand and know he has the ability to hurt people, in particular in transition. And I think sadly he had 30 points or so. Him being a little handicapped with his groin really hurt him. And we actually was considering shutting him down until the first of the year, but he fought and we worked him in practice and really put him through a practice and a half prior to that game, because he didn't perform well at Catawba Valley on Monday, and he sat out most of the game because he just wasn't. I don't know if he didn't get loose. It could have been we traveled to Hickory. I mean, it could be. You could make any excuse you want for that, but he just didn't play well. And so we set him down, and then we went to Pitt on Thursday, and I think that maybe he loosened up and he was able to go and he played better. But he's trying to get him to be consistent and be healthy. Well, consistent and be healthy would help us, because he's relied upon to be a guy that we can count on to do a myriad of things. And that's also, Casey got off to a good start early in the year. He's been consistent, but he also having to carry the load with Kaman missing and Lee being hurt. I mean, he has to do a lot as one of the veterans and a returner. The guys would look to him to do a lot. And I mean, he was averaging a double-double at one time and had a couple games where he had 12, 13 rebounds. But like I told him, I said, well, you've assumed the role of public enemy number one. So people are going to structure their defense to frustrate and eliminate you. So you got to figure out how to, find other ways to be impactful, because the defense is going to be set to try to stop you first and foremost. And Rod helps with that, with spacing, because, Rod has the ability to stretch the floor. He just has to round out the other areas of his game so that he can be more consistent. Another freshman that we're relying on to play probably more minutes than was expected is Quavion Anderson, freshman from Raleigh. He has a college-ready body, but he has to learn the college game and play the college game and get more comfortable playing against older, more advanced players.
Yeah.
So that's something he's learning and dealing with. And so is Lee. Lee played last year a little bit at JUCO in Maryland. He's from Charlotte. And he said it wasn't a good fit. He dealt with COVID issues and didn't get a great opportunity to play. I think he may have played in like 8 games last year. So once he decided he wanted to make a move, we reached out. We had a conversation and we talked a little bit. So he's also having to develop an identity. Yes. And now we're losing without Jalen Burke. He had a situation he has to work through. As of since Wednesday, he was out dealing with an injury, and then another scenario he's having to work through. Just because he's got to deal with it. All right.
We won't talk about that. We'll leave that for another day, and another show.
So once we become whole and have everything, I don't want to make a reference to bullets on a gun. That's not the right time. Yeah. But once we have everybody in place that we're counting on, I think that we will be able to, hopefully we'll be able to do more things like we did Saturday versus the previous 7 games in a row where we couldn't finish. And, looking back at those games, most of those games were 7, 6, 7, 8 point games down to the end. And then obviously you're trying to extend the game and catch some breaks, and teams make free throws. I mean, it's college basketball.
Yeah.
A lot of people,
majority of every team shoot 60 to 70% from the free throw line. So if you go start fouling them, you're just and you're not hitting the ball, hitting the shots at the other end. And
Yep.
like you said, there was, the game 2 weeks ago against Lenore. It come down to the final shot, but, that game shouldn't have been in that situation for you guys. I mean, you guys had well over 20 turnovers, and you guys shot poorly from the field.
Mm-hmm.
But, as much JUCO basketball I watch in the region, you guys got one of the top 1-2 punches with Perkins and Green in the front court.
Right.
Definitely. You can tell, you can look at Saturday's game and look at Saturday's film and go, wow, man, that felt so good and it looked good. The chemistry, I felt like the chemistry was just there. It on the sideline calling a game, my skin was crawling because I seen the fun, like they turned the fundamentals into fun play.
Mm-hmm. Well, my skin was crawling all the other games. So Saturday was the first time I could kind of breathe a little bit and say, okay, now let's focus on finishing. And it was interesting to be in that situation because we practice situational basketball, right? And every coach does that. But the situational basketball we've been practicing for the last month has not been us up by 8 to 10 points at the end because that ain't been a situation we've been in. It's been trying to climb out of that hole. So it was interesting to see the guys make free throws and possess the ball and not panic and frantic under teams pressing up and being overly extra aggressive to try to impede them. So it was interesting because, to be quite honest, that isn't anything that we've put a lot of emphasis on because we hadn't been in that situation in quite a long time. So it was good to see those guys be able to come together and finish. And I was happy for them because you work hard, practice every day, and you go out, you play, you make 3 or 4 or 5 critical errors sometimes in a row, and it costs you a game. So it was good for those guys. They work hard to get a chance to see that, to get that glory and get that win.
Yeah, the one thing I noticed more on Saturday than a lot of games prior was a defense. You guys pretty much come out of a shot. You guys set up in a full court press. They beat the press. You guys are so far behind the ball. The ball is underneath the goal. They're going out for an easy bucket. Nothing's contested. But on Saturday, with Zamir stepping up on defense, great. There's a couple questionable calls that I felt like weren't, a foul. And then with Casey and Kaman out there, it's basically like your 3 guards. One was attacking the offensive, and the other 2 was already cutting out. Just like most of the JUCOs you guys play, there's always the headhunter that's going to attack the ball, and everybody else is just going to split like a 3-man weave.
Right.
And that's how you guys got ahead Saturday. But moving on, it kind of gets dirty come the new year.
Yeah.
You guys, there is as the first month and a half of basketball, you don't see the light. But now you coming into the Christmas holiday, hopefully you guys don't get the leg lag, and you guys got 2 more games. You got 2 games this week. You guys play Saturday, then you guys at Southeast Virginia, and then you guys play also
Wake Tech on Thursday.
Wake Tech on Thursday, and Wake Tech is not a team you want to sleep past.
No,
either Southwest Virginia, but then you got 2 weeks off.
Right. Well, that's part of, I think, that's part of the dynamic that you have to work past, and guys have to understand they got to take their work serious and they got to continue to work even though they're not under my thumb. Everybody will have their individual work responsibilities. We'll give them their individual work regimen over the holiday for those couple weeks, and we won't have 2 weeks off.
Yeah,
we'll have a
two weeks without games.
We'll have a break sometimes, but they're gonna have to have their butts here. We're gonna have to get prepared because we have to do that. But we got to finish this semester in the classroom. Classes in Monday, and we gotta get ourselves together and build and continue to build upon this. So it'd be very important to be great for us to come off and be successful the rest of this semester and next week, and be able to use that as a stepping stone into 2023.
Yeah, going into 2023, looking ahead, like you said, after this week's matchups, you go to Martinsville, Virginia. You play Patrick Henry, a team we played a week and a half ago, lost by 1 possession. And then Sand Hills visits us at home, which can be a test. But then we play a Lewisburg team we haven't seen yet, and then Fayetteville.
Right.
So I mean, there's a potential way that the Jaguars could go 4-0. or the Jaguars can go 2-2.
Mm-hmm.
But with at least knowing what Fayetteville Tech has
Mm-hmm.
and what Patrick Henry has,
Mm-hmm.
that's probably the strongest two I see that will be easier practicing, over the next 2 weeks going forward.
I guess as you're looking forward, I guess you can say you know what to expect exactly because you've been on the court with them. You've been in the situations with them, so you kind of got an idea of what they want to do. But obviously, everybody will probably try to add some tweaks to some things. So in that regard, yeah, we've seen them, we've played them, we got film on them versus ourselves. So we know what they want to do, and we know what we had that worked versus them. But unfortunately, in this, by the time you get back around to somebody the second time, they may be completely different. They may not even be working and executing the same way. So it's good to know and have an idea, but you got to do your research and prepare for teams, and you got to take it one game at a time. Because like I said, you don't get any breaks. Any of those teams can probably be top 3 in the region. Any of those teams can be in the middle of the region. So you never know until the season, the ebbs and flows of the season is very unpredictable. If you'd have told me November 1st that we would have won our first game December the 10th, I wouldn't have believed you. But that's the reality.
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate that. I didn't anticipate, us to struggle, us to, not be as locked in defensively. I mean, we won Saturday. We gave up 90 points. So we got to do a better job. Obviously scoring 100, you're proud of that, but we gotta do a better job.
You got to score 100 when you give up 90.
Right, you put the pressure on yourself. So we just got to make sure that we're controlling our controllables and doing the things that doing the things that we do well, and not letting other teams dictate how we play. And that's one thing that we did trying to do a lot of role definition and get guys to understand what they're responsible for. And everybody's responsible for defending. So, everybody, every kid, every young man want to have offensive variety or the ability to do multiple things. But the reality is on the court with the 5 guys you're on the court with at that time, your role is going to be probably minimized to X, Y, and Z. And you got to master that. But defensively, everybody has to do this. You got to keep the ball in front of you. You got to box out every possession. You got to be in the passing lanes. You got to be alert and aware. So those things don't change. And, we just have to continue to grow in that as a group.
Yes. We won't get too far ahead of us, but, got the holiday season coming on, 2 weeks away, a week and a half away from Christmas, 2 weeks from yesterday.
Yeah, it's already here.
And, is there any tournaments that you guys will be going to, any holiday tournaments or anything?
No, we haven't. We did that the first couple years I was here, and it became more of a challenge because you run into guys wanting to, we're commuter school, so everybody's kind of here and there and here. So give the guys the time. I prefer to give the guys the time to take their time to get back in tune with their families and spend time over the holiday, and then we'll probably come back in. We'll obviously we play this upcoming week, and then we'll have probably the week of Christmas. I guess that'll be the next week off, and then we'll probably get back in between Christmas and New Year's a couple different times and just start working, and then we'll pick back up. So they'll have a break. I obviously want to give the guys a break, but it's as of the 4-year, I remember us having to travel. We practiced the day after Christmas, like 8:00 in the morning. And we had 2 days, and we played in the tournament prior to the week after Christmas before New Year's. And that was tough because, sometimes your guys, especially your younger guys,
mentally not there.
They're not accustomed to that. And the travel, the responsibility, and the challenge of playing that way. I tell guys all the time, I say, your experiences in high school aren't necessarily going to look like the experiences you have in college basketball. And your experiences, and I tell them all the time, and they know this is one of my things. I said, if you can make it through the junior college grind, you can make it anywhere because it's challenging. You don't have a dorm, you don't have a calf. There are just other things that impact it that you're gonna, if you're lucky enough to get in and blessed enough to get the opportunity to play at the next level, things are gonna simplify in that regard. Now, the expectation basketball-wise, not going to simplify.
No.
But there'll be a lot simpler routine that you can adjust to versus, the school and the travel and the driving home and the driving. You got guys that drive an hour, 45 minutes to an hour every day for school and practice and games and things of that nature. So those things make you become a man. And that's why I tell, when I talk to coaches about this level, I said, well, you're getting a young man because he's not a boy. If he makes it through this, you're getting a man, and he's going to be accountable because he's seen the challenges. He understands it'll be really easy for him to get up and walk across campus to the weight room at 8 a.m. because the weight room we had was an hour away, and you couldn't get into it until the end of the day because you don't have access to it all day, and it's this, that, and the third. So there's a lot of challenges and things that go into these young men's lives that prepare them and make things when they get through it. That they'll be grateful for it, and they'll be able to ease into it if they have the opportunity to continue playing after here. They'll be able to adjust because they've grown through it. I said you've grown
pains,
through it.
Yeah, definitely. But one thing moving forward in the year, the upcoming rest of the season is trying to stay healthy and staying, eligible through the NJCAA. A lot of kids, like you said, you're a commuter school. Kids travel an hour and a half. One thing you got to keep up is the grades.
Correct, and that's something that always is there's always an elephant in the room because you're student athlete, you're student first. So
yeah,
if you don't maintain and make sure you have the student portion of things in place, then the athlete part going to get eliminated. So we have to prepare for those things, and we preach that message. We have the routines of getting tutoring if you need tutoring and accounting for study hall on a weekly basis and things of that nature. But these young men have to make decisions as adults because it's a lot of guys are in that now. We're in the day and age a lot of online classes.
Yes.
I ask them all the time, how do you have absences from an online class? And they try to finagle and talk through things, but they don't know that I'm a school counselor at an online academy in Wake County. So I know how this works.
Yeah.
They don't really. They start talking. I'm like, well, that's gonna be. I'm not going for that because all my students are in line. All my students are virtual as it is.
Yeah.
So I say, how am I getting more absent? Because you're not turning in work on the deadline. That's why you absent.
Yeah.
If your work due at 12 o'clock on Saturday and you don't turn it in, then the teacher. There's a lot of. So you got to understand that and know how to work through that. And that's so we have students taking online classes, then we have students taking in-person classes as they always have. So you just got to find a healthy balance and be able to maintain. And most of them are doing what they're supposed to do. That was the first year here. That bit us bad. And we took we brought in a large group of guys, and we some guys that had some academic risk, and again the freedoms of being responsible for your own and having to you don't have the same things you have in high school where they contact your parent when you're not.
Oh yeah, get it right to no home.
No, you're gonna get an email, and that's gonna be the end of that. Unless you're lucky enough that they contact me or contact our athletic, somebody in the athletic department and say, hey, he's struggling, and we're trying to offer him some support and things of that nature. So it's
hopefully your teacher that you're having a problem with is real friends with you and the AD.
Well, just hopefully they'll be a little more lenient and giving guys maybe extra time. Where we traveled Monday, we went all the way out of town. Can they get an extension? Things of that nature. But again, you have to request that. That can't come from me. You're the person in the class. You're the student. You're the young man. You got to communicate with your teacher, and you got to do those things. Now, we'll support you and help you. They have the schedule, but that doesn't mean you don't let them know that you're going to miss class because you're traveling.
Yeah.
Everybody has a schedule, but what's wrong with you reminding or sending an email? Is there anything I need to work on since I may miss class? And I try to schedule things so that we don't miss class. And I think that'll be the only time that they have to miss class to travel. That's already in the past. So that was unavoidable due to scheduling, but try to avoid that as much as we can. But they got to be responsible and handle that.
Yeah. One last thing, Coach Creecy, before I let you go here, get home to the family is, the sophomore class you have, going back 2 years, the freshman class, or juniors in high school, some sophomore juniors. How do you think, obviously the big C word, COVID, impacted, the sport itself, how the student athlete transitioned from high school? Because a lot of schools, obviously as junior college, like to keep some kids from North Carolina and the JUCOs here, but some, like you say, is from out of state. But how do you think that's, impacted the student athlete today?
I'm not really sure it impacted these student athletes as much as it impacted the schools and the way the schools move because COVID created some other situations that hurt high school kids more than it helps others. Because
Yeah,
they get pushed further down because they are even though they may be exceptional, they're the lower guy on the totem pole based on evaluation and assessment. So and that if that trickles into recruiting, you're seeing guys now in JUCOs that you would have expected to see at 4 years, 3, 4, 5 years ago.
exactly.
They would have been more coveted by 4-year schools, but due to changes in rule, transfer portal, things of that nature,
Oh yeah,
they're not getting those opportunities out of high school because coaches gotta eat. I tell them all the time, guys, can somebody invest $50,000 in you producing? I said, would you invest $50,000 on the work and the level of commitment you have to being a basketball player? Because that's what that coach has to do. And if you don't perform, he don't keep his job. So you think you're a talented basketball player, and you are, but you also have to look at all the factors. What do you bring to the table? Are you an academic risk? Do you have poor character? Do what is your level of accountability? Because they can't make these kind of mistakes at 4 years or they lose their job.
yeah.
And I mean, how you feel if you got to understand that. And I try to make sure educate all my players on that process because I've been in that process. I know what that looks like. I've been that evaluator telling a kid that was a conference player of the year that looking at me like, Coach, why in the world why am I not being talked about by some schools? I say, well, because they're looking at rosters across the country and seeing that there are other players that are unhappy or not playing, and they're waiting on them. So when they're waiting on them, then you have to wait, and that doesn't mean you're not talented. That doesn't mean you're not worthy, but you're gonna have to be patient. Are you willing to be patient? Because it's gonna take that. I mean, now the elite guys, they get opportunities, but again, you just have to be patient. And then I tell the guys here, you get pushed if you're gonna finish this year in 2023, and you're gonna be exiting as with a degree, and you'll be a junior. There are some coaches who will value you more than they'll value that high level high school player
Yeah.
because that high school player ain't survived college. He ain't been away from home. He
No.
still his mama cook for him every night. He
Yeah.
don't have to wash his clothes. He don't have to
Exactly.
dry. So there are a lot of factors that you have experienced that other players in high school haven't. And if you have, if some coaches value that, if that talent is closer, I got to take what I know can do it, and I know the kid from junior college has these experiences.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I try to get guys to understand that. And when we start the process and we're looking at schools and finding fits and contacting coaches, we talk about that, and we try to make sure I'm very transparent with them so they are aware of that. And the track record in getting kids opportunities at the next level has been pretty good. I think we've done a pretty good job of finding the right fit for players and putting them in places where they can extend their playing career.
Yeah, you hit it right on the tail. I'm alumni of North Carolina Central, and I tell you, Lavelle Moulton
Oh
loves a
man, I didn't know that, man. I'm an A&T grad. I
oh,
didn't know that.
Eagle Pride baby. But anyway, Lavelle Moulton, he loves junior college kids.
Yeah.
And that's you broke it down right there. That's I mean, like
Coach Moten loves older guys. He
yes,
loves guys that are tough and have been through things, and he doesn't have to
he doesn't
coddle.
have he doesn't have to
He
be.
he knows, and I've met Coach Moten and know Coach Moten and been in his practices and seen him. And a young man, a 18-year-old, and that ain't just Coach Moten, but that's pretty much any coach. It's hard.
Yes.
It's not, and guys don't recognize that until they're in it, because you gotta be accountable. They don't have the time to wait for you to get yourself together. You gotta be ready, and that issue is something that a lot of young guys don't know that that's coming in that manner, and they may not be prepared for it. So it's a big change. So you got to have some tough skin and be able to accept some things. I mean, we on a broadcast, but I remember, my freshman year in college, uh, I thought my name was dumbass freshman
Yeah.
for a long time. That's what I thought my name was, because it's like you were a high level sought after player, but then when you get there, and I started college at 17, and the other guys are 21 and 22. That is a huge gap. That is a big difference. Maturation, physically, emotionally, socially, it's just different, So you gotta, that guy has to be a young guy to come in and do that. You gotta be mentally tough, and you gotta be prepared for that because it's interesting. And I've done a lot of mentoring and talking with players for many years, and they'll come back and say, "Man, I wasn't ready to go to college."
Yeah, definitely. All right, Coach. Well, we got a coach show coming up in about 2 weeks. We'll be back, right before the start of the new year, and we'll touch base and sum up the first half. But it's been a good coach's show. We're going to go ahead and let you get going to the family as the Jaguars are on the road this week as they face Wake Tech in Southeast Virginia. Thanks for stopping by, Coach Creecy, and we wish the Jaguars well.
Thank you.
In the coming weeks.
So hopefully when we talk the next time, we'll be closer to 500.
Closer to 500. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Coach Creecy of your Jaguars from Johnson Community College. You're listening to Jaguars Coaches Show on Jaguars Sports Network.